Houston Texans won the AFC South again and made it back to the divisional round, but for some reason it felt not like the season that they were hoping for and expecting, especially after their amazing 2023 season. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down what Texas fans can expect from their team in the 2025 offseason and beyond. But before we get into that, if you like the work that the Tracy Take puts out and you want to help the Tracy Take channel grow, easiest way is hitting that subscribe button, tackling that bell to get notified when new videos come out. And while you're at it, leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Texans do and why. And Ryan, as I said, so it's like they won the AFC South and then they did make it to the divisional round. But the biggest thing, though, is definitely the regression in the offense from the 2023 season. There's a lot of factors, I think, that go into that we'll get into here in a second. But it did lead to the firing of Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator. And as of the recording of this video, which is Wednesday, January 29th, they still have not found an offensive coordinator. I think, if I'm not mistaken, by recount saying, if I'm remembering correctly, but Chip Kelly seems like a very prominent name that keeps going around in the Texan circle. I don't think I'm mixing that up with another team here. I'll look that up here in a second. But more going into the fact, though, the biggest Texans problem that we'll dive into here in a little bit, but it just felt like C.J. Stroud, he regressed, yes, but there were a lot of external factors that affected his play this year. Weak offensive line, as you can see here by the 54 sacks, 29th overall in the league. A lot of injuries to that team just as a whole. Stefon Diggs and Dell suffering some massive injuries. Nico Collins even missed some time as well. So that just kind of led to just a major regression of this offense. But on the positive side, though, this defense that DeMeco Ryans put together is top notch. They're absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you look fourth in sacks with 49. I believe Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter were had the most sacks between an edge rushing duo in the league. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that one in the comments, but I believe, especially through like the first 10, 12 games, they were definitely very high on that list. They forced a lot of turnovers there with 29. They were 10th in points allowed. They were 6th in total yards allowed. So all in all, it was just a really solid performance. If there was one thing that they could have, I think, improved upon, which it still was above average, but that rushing defense being 11th is kind of like the area I think you look to improve. But also some of that is the rest of this defense is just so good. Like teams were kind of trying to keep games manageable, run clock, and keep games shorter against this team, because for the majority of the season, this was a really high-powered offense. So, and I say high-powered as in like they had the potential to put up a lot of points. I know statistically they weren't the best, but with that being said, you still had C.J. Stroud, you had Dell, Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins for a decent bit of the season. Dalton Schultz was a really good option there as well. And so I really do think like part of the reason why, like, there had to be something else going on with Bobby Slowick in that coaching staff. Maybe him and DeMeco Ryans didn't quite get along. Maybe he had trouble managing this offensive line, or had trouble managing coaching relationships with the offensive line. Because I do feel like, especially after last season, this was not a bad enough performance, in my opinion, that you look to move on from a guy who was a potential like head coaching option in August of like 6 months ago. A lot of people were looking to see that if he would become available for head coaching jobs. And so for me, it's really interesting to kind of see what they do going into the offseason. What offensive coordinator do they get? I know Chip Kelly was one. Nick Caserio was another, the tight ends and passing game coordinator from the Rams. So I think that's going to be really interesting to kind of see where they go from there. And that's going to affect free agents. I mean, I don't remember their cap space number off the top of my head, but they have a few pretty interesting free agents there. Starting off, Stefon Diggs, they traded for him and then actually like bought him out of the second year of his deal when he like was initially traded for, so that he would become an unrestricted free agent this offseason. And so I think that's going to be really interesting. Mario Edwards is another one that I think is going to be he was a rotational player for them. So a few other guys, I think, kind of going through it, but all in all, like, they have some needs that they need to replace. The other one that I saw that I think is going to be really interesting is Shaq Mason. They could save a decent bit of cap space if they release Shaq Mason with a post-June 1st cut there as well.
Well, and that's what's going to be interesting too, because as of over the cap right now, it does look like Texans are about even when it comes to the cap for the 2025. So they do need to create some space if they're wanting to move, if they want to move some guys around, and that's right. I think even too moving on from Shaq Mason or moving on from any of the interior line guys in general, I think might just be beneficial for whoever the new offensive coordinator that's going to be coming in, because that was the big step back overall from when you just watch this team. And
Mhm.
CJ Stroud did have a little bit of sophomore slump, as I said already. Like yes, he did, but he wasn't given any favors too much, really by the protection that he was getting throughout the season. And so, if they want to move on from Shaq Mason, or if they want to move on from Kendrick Green, or uh, who's the guy, Keon Green, as
Kenyon
well.
Green.
Kenyon Green. That's it. Which I think a lot of Houston Texans. I don't want to speak for all Texans fans. I think everybody wants to move on from Kenyon Green. And so that potentially could be an option. And the receiver position is going to be a sneaky one as well, as you kind of mentioned on Stefon Diggs. So do they want to bring him back? But he's going to be pricey. I'm just going to assume that Tank Dell is going to miss the 2025 season, just with the severity of the injury, and also to where, like, when it took place, like took place near Christmas. Uh, that that's he's probably going to miss majority of the 2025 season. So now
Mhm.
you're down your top two, your second and third receivers on the season, and just going to have Nico Collins. Nico Collins is a really good receiver. He's definitely that primary X guy, and this is going to be a very interesting draft on what they end up doing. On what they're able to get with their draft picks. I feel like the receiver spot's going to be somebody that they go out and get. And so, as you see here with draft targets, they don't have that much, but Jalen Royals, I think, is probably going to be in that, you know, late second round option. Maybe they can even trade up for him. But what's going to be interesting, as you can see here, according to Tankathon, as of today as well, they only have about 6 picks or so. So not going to really have the draft capital move around. Ryan, I'll get to you in a second here with more receivers, but also they want to really address the offensive line. I think a guy that's really risen up the draft boards today, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State offensive lineman. He's probably going to kick in the guard. I think the Texans are eyeing him at 25. I think a lot of teams are going to be eyeing him. He potentially just made himself a lot of money so far with his performances in the senior day, from what I have
Mhm.
seen. And I think Texas fans have really been watching that as well. They don't want to go after, or they want to wait on interior offensive lineman in the draft. I think Trey Smith or Ryan Kelly or Kevin Zeitler, I think, are some big guys that I think they can go after. That I think could also be fairly affordable. Trey Smith actually might be a little bit more expensive, but
Yeah.
Kelly and Kevin Zeitler might be a little bit more in the affordable price range, and also get some extremely solid production out of them.
Yeah, and kinda going back, I think this team is gonna have to build through the draft. Just they don't have a lot of cap space. I think they could go out and make 1 or 2 decent signings, but all in all, I think it's gonna come down to the draft, and yeah, Gray Zabel, has probably been the best offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl, and he will kick into guard. I think he measured in with, like, 32 and a quarter inch arms, and so he's not gonna be able to make it on the outside at that length, but, all in all, like, he's a really solid guard, who just hasn't, I think, lost a single rep yet at the Senior Bowl. Tyler Booker, another really physical guard as well. If
Yeah.
they want to address that defensive interior, this is a deep defensive interior line class, so maybe they skip on that. But Tyleek Williams, Deion Walker is another guy maybe in the second round that they could get. And there's a lot of wide receivers in that day, like late round 1 to like day 2 range. Like you look Jalen Royals, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins. Apparently it's a lot of J names, but Jack Besh, also another J name. So there's a lot of guys in that range that are going to be really solid NFL contributors. And I think you look like, if you are interested in a Nick Cayley, Jack Besh, not to throw the Puka Nakua comp around like lightly, but I think you look at like the skill set there and what Jack Besh is going to do. He's going to be a power slot where he's going to be physical at the line of scrimmage. He's going to be a really good run blocker. He's going to be a run after the catch threat. He's not this like elite speed guy, but he just has really consistent hands, a really solid receiver. I think that could be another good fit there as well. So there's a lot of options I think that the Texans can do. And honestly, the biggest thing going for them right now is they have CJ Stroud. DeMeco Ryans seems to be a good head coach. He's still implementing his defensive philosophies while being a plus game manager
Hmm.
for this Texans team. They have 2 good edge rushers. They have some really solid corners in Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley Jr. They have their number one receiver, Nico Collins. They kind of just need like the support pieces around everybody else to kind of like really be a top tier team in the NFL, because right now it feels like they have a lot of the star players that you need to be competitive in the NFL. They just need the supporting cast to do the dirty work. And luckily for them, that is exactly what this draft class is deep in, is those guys that are going to come in and do the dirty work.
Yeah, no. And that is going to be the draft, as well. We said this a bunch. Like last year was your franchise players, but this is also going to be the draft that I think you really find those Super Bowl pieces, those diamond in the roughs, to really help a team grow. So I think this is going to be fascinating to see what the Texans end up doing here. There's a lot of help that they need. Well, I say there's in some areas there's a lot of help that they need. But to your point, though, they have franchise quarterback. Joe Mixon's had a really good year. You have Nico Collins as well. You got your two premier edge rushers. Derek Stingley Jr. is a solid cornerback. So it's like in the areas where they need help, they need a lot of help. But there's not too many of those areas.
Yeah, they have like a lot of the elite players, as you said. They just need the solid foundation to allow those elite players to be able to make plays in key situations and go from there. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of the Texans 2024 season and what you want to see them doing going into the 2025 offseason. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.